everyone, welcome to John's Briefs, here again with Defense Attorney Extraordinaire Tim Forshee, and we are talking today, we recently had a video out of merry old England.
Yes.
Of a Sikh man who used his religious implement, his kirpan.
I can never remember the name.
Yep.
Kirpan.
A kirpan,
Okay.
which is a knife, and to defend himself against an armed robber, 3 armed robbers
Right.
armed with a knife. And I want to talk about using that and an interesting religious exemption that the Sikh people get.
To win the fight after the fight, you need help. After a use of force, I trust Firearms Legal Protection to help me win the fight for the rest of my life. From their 24/7 attorney-answered hotline to coverage for the use of all legal tools, Firearms Legal Protection has you covered. Get a discount by signing up at the link below.
You know, this is an interesting one because,
Very.
of course, in England, carrying a knife for self-defense is a crime. You
Right.
get sent to prison for years
Right.
for that.
Let alone a gun. Right.
Yeah, let alone.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, that is a whole nother discussion, okay? You English people should absolutely not let your overlords do that to you, okay?
If my government wouldn't let me own guns, I think I would probably start a revolution.
Yeah, I mean, we might have
Limeys,
something to say about
come
it.
on, yeah.
And remember, the Lexington and Concord was not fought over shoulder-fired weapons. It was fought over cannons.
That's right.
They wanted to come get the guns, and by guns they meant cannons in private hands. Anyways, in this case, we're talking about a religious knife. Now, the original kirpan that the Sikh people, now Sikhism is a religion. It is not an ethnicity, though the vast majority of Sikhs are
Sri
Arab.
Lanka?
Sri Lanka does have a
Yeah.
lot, so Asian and Arab influence there is where a lot of Sikh people come from, okay? But it's a religion, not an ethnicity.
Right.
And in Sikhism, they carry a knife as part of their religion.
Right.
And so it's very Mandalorian. It really is. You know, so you know
My
that's the
weapon
big
is my
topic.
religion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
weapons are
Yeah.
part of my religion.
Yeah.
It really is
Right.
part of their religion.
Right.
Now again, I'm a Christian. I'm not going to convert to Sikhism. But I see this is a very interesting thing because they get crazy exemptions to the law because this is a religious influence.
Yeah.
And
We have analogs in our country too. We have not so much weaponry, but we have, for instance, Native Americans are allowed to harvest bald eagles and use the feathers for ceremonial purposes. So we have exemptions to major laws based upon religion. Yep. We see that, yeah. So.
My wife's grandpa was a Hopi high priest, and my wife's half Native American, and he owned an eagle.
Yeah.
You know, she was big. She's like this big, and she dropped a feather for us, and it was always a pain because my wife had an eagle feather.
Right.
And we always
Which
she always had to have a tribal paperwork around because
Right.
you could get into
It's a federal
crime for
huge
owning
federal
an eagle
prosecution,
feather. Anyways, and so we have some of that, but it's interesting to me that he uses this knife, and what would normally be a crime in Britain all of a sudden isn't a crime anymore.
Right.
So what do you think of that?
I think it's appropriate. I mean, obviously, it's hard for me to give an objective opinion on this one. I think it's pretty damned absurd to bar knives for self-defense. I think it's absurd to bar handguns for self-defense. I mean, I don't understand that. But again, it's not my culture. I try to be sensitive to other people's cultures. But the fact that you can't carry any knife. So what if I'm at a restaurant and I have a butter knife, a steak knife? Wait a minute, steak knife? That's illegal. I mean, how long is a steak knife? I mean, you get into the minutia of this, and it's just patently absurd, right? So I'm all about this being an appropriate exemption, especially for somebody who's a peaceful, law-abiding warrior like a Sikh is, right? So what the heck? I mean,
I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, you know, so I went to school from like 1980 to 1993 in the Bay Area, and where I was at in the East Bay, Newark, Fremont, California, we had a very diverse group, right? So we had Tongans, and we had white kids and black kids, and Vietnamese and Indian and Native American and all this stuff. And we had a couple of Sikhs in my junior high.
Oh, cool.
Again, cool kids,
Yeah.
and we all got along great. We didn't have some of those problems that exist today, but and those kids carried their kirpan in school. And we didn't have any problem with it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of cool.
And the school authorities were fine with it as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it was a religious implement.
If the law, but I'll bet that's changed. I wouldn't be surprised if that's changed these days.
Well, and as I remember it now, of course, that's a few years ago at this point, right? We're probably talking, what, around late 80s, something like that. That they weren't, of course, ever allowed to brandish it, to show it off, to tell people about it. You know, when you take PE with these guys, obviously, you know what I mean. You're PE clothes off and put new clothes on.
I've heard that some of them keep them in the turban. Is that correct? Is that
I've
someplace?
seen that
Yeah,
some, but I
yeah.
also have seen some others that keep it in their belt, and
Yes.
they're required to keep it on their person all the
This
time.
guy had his in his belt in the video, I think, yeah.
As a religious implement. And so when they get in their PE clothes, they would put it inside of their PE shorts.
You gotta love it.
And then when they got out of their PE clothes, they would put it back in their regular shorts. And
Let's go out and play dodgeball now.
let's go out and play dodgeball, and let's be nice because he's got a knife. I just think, all right, that to me is especially in light of this new kind of culture of the Mandalorian stuff.
Right,
This is the way, and all those
Yeah.
things. I think that's kind of cool. Of course, now then you ask the question: if I'm Sikh, and what if I have to go to court?
Well, and then of course, how do you define Sikh? Did I just become a Sikh yesterday? I mean, is it just that I thought it was kind of cool to sound like? I mean, but a true Sikh, yeah. I mean, if there's religious issues with regard to their ability or availability to go to court, I mean, those things are all going to play, right? I mean, when I'm a judge, nobody's allowed to have a hat on when they come in the courtroom. That's a court rule. It's not necessarily a law, but it's a court rule. It's protocol. It's just the bailiff will go over and say, please remove your hat. If somebody's wearing head coverings for religious purposes, of course, we don't do that. So again, discretion, valor, et cetera, et cetera. But you've got to bend to that. Especially in today's society, we have to be more, I think, more aware of that and more likely to bend to that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
And so I think one of the reasons that one of the interesting things to me, I looked some of this up, the TSA forbids. So if a Sikh person wants to get on a plane in the United
Not
States,
allowed.
not allowed.
Wow.
They have to check it in their checked baggage.
Can anybody imagine anybody successfully taking over an airliner with a knife at this point? I mean, it's just never, ever going
you
to
would have
happen
a hell
again.
of a fight.
Never going to happen again.
And could that potentially be abused? Yes.
Pretty far-fetched these days.
But
I
you
mean,
know what?
You're going to get stomped to death in the middle of the aisle. So
every federal officer in America can carry a firearm on board the airplane.
Yeah.
And that's not a problem. And you go, well, they're cops though, and we trust them.
wow, there's some misplaced trust sometimes there. That's for sure.
And so, okay, and there's some of that stuff. So, anyways,
Now, I love The Mandalorian, by the way, and I think that's a really awesome reference you came up with. I don't know if you guys noticed, but when he unsheathed his knife, he did it over his head, and you heard him giving those guttural primal yells.
Yeah.
It's like a Maori tribesman going into battle. I thought it was so awesome. But then, if you notice later in the video, he grabs a cricket bat.
yeah.
Which I gotta say, I'm not a knife fighting expert. I've had a few classes. I would say the cricket bat would be a more formidable weapon than that little knife, than that
Longer
little dirt.
range.
Much longer range, a lot more leverage, blah blah blah. So don't get so caught up in your Mandalorian religion that you're completely focused and nearsighted on one particular item. I mean, this guy obviously had positioned that cricket bat. So if my religion blinded me to a better weapon, I want you to be alive in a Sikh. I don't want you to be a dead Sikh who relied upon his kirpan. So I don't know, just always, keep the big picture in mind as well. So probably no religious exemption for cricket, although there might be in the UK. I don't know.
Who knows? Just a unique thing that I thought was kind of cool to talk about with the
Oh, it's
attorney.
awesome.
That,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you convert religion so that you can carry a cool knife around all the time. Okay, no. If you're going to convert to Sikhism, do so because you find that to be
Exactly.
the way to approach
Or
the holy. But
let's start our own religion where we're required to carry a 1911. And,
I think we did. That's called gun sight.
it's gun sight,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
We just
what
need
it
more
is.
people, right? Mainstream.
Genuflect towards Polden 3 times a day. Anyways, no, we're not going to do that. So I'm not saying to carry against the law. I'm not saying to use religion as a tool to try to get exemptions for stuff. I just think, man, that was a cool thing to look at. So
Yeah.
Tim, man, thanks for the discussion.
And again, kudos to the brave guy that defended himself in his shop. I think it worked out great. Yeah.
Agreed.
Thanks, guys.